and peaceful place. I'm very lucky. So, I wanted to talk about a less peaceful place. And I'm just going to talk off the cuff, so hope it goes well. We've all watched this horror unfold before our eyes for the last 2 years in the Middle East, in Israel, Palestine. And despite nonsense, faux ceasefire deals and all that, and all the pomp and sadly probably false hope of that, we still watch as people are slaughtered and the war continues. Now, I'm far from any expert on this subject. I am literally just a guy. Definitely thought about it a fair deal, but I'm not any kind of great knower on this subject. But I do want to talk a little bit about my own experience with Israel-Palestine and with Palestine specifically. And more than just my own experience, I wanted to talk about 3 Palestinians who I met who treated me with great love and care. So a bit of background context. I was raised in a Jewish community in Canada, born to a Jewish mother, raised in that milieu, and I had a great upbringing, great childhood. I'm forever grateful to my friends and family back home, and I love them dearly. But yeah, I was raised in that very Zionistic milieu, and I'm not going to get into the details of that here, but that's kind of my upbringing. And in 2014, with the, before this, I kind of had, before 2014, I had, known about the conflict and everything, and I knew that some bad things were happening, and but I also was, taught about, how great Israel was for Jewish people and all that, and raised around a lot of Israeli flags, singing the Israeli national anthem, which, still can make me, well, maybe not anymore, but at least in the past would make me pretty emotional when I'd hear it. So spent most of my sort of teenagehood and childhood not really very political. But then in 2014 with Operation Protective Edge, that's when I was pretty much politicized into an anti-Zionist direction because of just seeing the footage of the horror and brutality that people were being subjected to in the Gaza Strip. And that, I started to, with the youthful zeal of newfound political radicalism, was like arguing with friends and family back home on Facebook and all that crap. Whatever, just youthful fire as it goes. And kind of became politicized through that issue of Israel-Palestine and thinking that there was a grave injustice taking place against the Palestinians in that time. And from there, I got interested in politics, and I started to, look at what university programs I would take, and I ended up going into journalism and political science because I wanted to be a war correspondent in Israel and Palestine, which was a naive thing to think at the time. Well, now I know that, but I didn't know that then. That was my original kind of motivation for going into journalism and for being interested in politics in the first place. So in 2015 and in 2016, I spent 2 summers in Israel, Palestine, doing internships. And, I went on Birthright. I did the whole thing. I lived on a kibbutz for 3 weeks, which was a great experience. And then that was like the first trip. Did the whole tour around, did all of that. I think that was the trip where I also went to Hebron, which is a very troubled place. And that was my first trip in 2015. And then in 2016, I did a second trip. And this was also a journalism internship kind of trip. So for 2 months, I interned for Haaretz, the newspaper in Tel Aviv. And then for the last month, I was meant to intern at an online news outlet called the Palestine Monitor in Ramallah. Bit of more context before I get into the rest of it. This was also a time of like my own political evolution. This was like 2015, 2016. You know, as I said, I started off being anti-Zionist, more very much on the left, but life happened. It's a long story, but I started to go conservative. I started to get more into the conservative mentality. And so, especially on my second trip to Israel in 2016, I was like pretty much more pro-Zionist at this point. And, you know, kind of believed in the project very much. And there's a lot to say about that. But, so I was tending towards the right at this time, let's put it that way, politically. But, you know, I was still working for Haaretz and, or interning for them. And then I had this trip that I was supposed to take to Ramallah to spend a month there, reporting for this Palestinian, or it was I guess it was kind of run by Westerners, but it was a pro-Palestinian outlet. And so, yeah, after 2 months in Israel, I packed my bags and said goodbye to friends and headed off by myself to Ramallah, going through Jerusalem. And it's very easy to get into Ramallah, or at least it was then, I don't know what it is like now, but it was very easy to get into Ramallah, very hard to get out. That's something I'll mention later. So I went to Ramallah, and I ended up only spending 8 days there. I'll tell you why, but first I want to tell you less about myself, because this isn't about me at all. I just wanted to give you a context for what I was thinking and what I was going through at the time. This is about Palestinian people and about honoring them, honoring their humanity in a time where they're being subjected to utter brutality at the hands of many people, but primarily Israel and the West, or Israel and its Western enablers. I want to talk about three Palestinian people who treated me beautifully. The first one I'll mention was my landlord while I was there. Yeah, I just remember him being a really nice guy. He picked me up from the bus stop to bring me to the apartment. We spoke a bit, and I could tell he had a lot of frustration about the conditions that he lived under and the control that Israel had over his life. Which, who can blame him, right? Good Lord. So I remember that, and he's the first one I want to talk about. Just a brief thing that happened with him that just showed me the bravery of these people, of him specifically. You know, I remember when we were talking in the apartment at one point, he spoke about his childhood, and I must have been during one of the intifadas. I'm too ignorant of the history to tell which one right now. I should have probably looked it up first. But he was a kid going to school, and he was telling me about how he would have to like hide behind, stop sign poles to, avoid Israeli bullets. And so he'd been through some things. He'd been through some life-threatening encounters, clearly. And it's just this little story that happened where one day I was in the apartment and I got locked in. I forget the details. I forget what happened. But I was in the apartment and I could not get out. I think it was locked from the outside. And I needed somebody to come and open the door. So I got in touch with the landlord. And he came over. He came in. closed the door, and then we were both locked in suddenly. We were both locked in together. And we needed a way out. And he was the guy with the key. So there was a balcony in the apartment. And this man, he went out on the balcony and he thought it through very quickly. And he realized what he had to do. He had to scale and jump up to the next balcony in order to go around and come back and unlock the door again. And this was like a few stories up. Like if he had fallen, he would have either died or been severely injured. And he very, like, without hesitation, just hopped between balconies, jumped up to the upper balcony, and there was a fall. He could have fallen, all those stories. He got up and went around and unlocked the door. That doesn't sound like much, right? That doesn't sound like much. But I remember at the time, it just struck me as like a very brave thing to do. And, you know, because he could have fallen, could have died, could have hurt himself, and he just did it without hesitation. And he got up, got around, and opened up the door so that I could get in and out. It was for a very simple, practical reason. But yeah, he did a great job. So that's just the first little story I want to share about the care and the bravery that I saw in a Palestinian man in Ramallah. And I always respected that a lot. The second story is the second person. This happened while I was in the office for the Palestine Monitor. I was alone in the office in the middle of Ramallah and didn't really have much to do. I didn't speak Arabic. You know, what am I doing there, in a sense? And I didn't really have anything to do. I was alone in the office. And I was sitting there in a little space, and all of a sudden I just hear the smallest whisper. The smallest whisper. Assalamu alaikum. It was just this soft voice. And, you know, I was like, oh, what's going on? Like, somebody's here that I don't know. Okay. A little bit freaky. So I got up, went to go see who it was, and I saw that a man had walked in the front door. And he was a rather shaggy looking man. Okay. He had a big black beard. He was an older man. And I was a little bit creeped out. I was a little freaked out. I was like, what? I'm alone in this office and there's a random stranger here. And he was clearly a homeless man. He was a beggar. And I forget how he communicated with me exactly, but he basically asked if I had any money. And I was like, yep, I did have some shekels in the wallet. And, you know, I kind of, in my heart, I was kind of like, hey, I just would like this man to be out of the office so I could be alone again. And so I was like, yeah, I got money. You know, pulled out my wallet, handed him 20 shekels. And his reaction was like so pure and loving. If I remember correctly, like he looked at me, and after he took the shekels, and he literally kissed me on the cheek, and he said in English, "I love you." It really stirs my heart when I say it. He did that, took the money, kissed me on the cheek, said "I love you," and then he was off, never to be seen by me again. And I'm sitting there almost like shocked, like, what just happened? You know? And I was like, wow, that was interesting. And I thought that was a very beautiful, just like a pure-hearted, deep, beautiful moment of love. You know, a pure love. And I'm so grateful for that soul. Like, I mean, angelic on some level. And so that was the second story. Another very kind of simple tale that just shows a loving, simple human being and the gratitude and affection that he had for a simple act of kindness that I showed him. And I wasn't even in a kind state of mood when I did it. I was in a almost prejudicial state mood. I was scared. I was like, I would like this man to leave. And he responded to me with love and appreciation. And so that's a beautiful thing and not to be taken lightly. In fact, that's almost everything. That's in a way all that matters, is that act of love right there that he showed me. It wasn't me showing him an act of love. He showed me the act of love. Okay? Never will I forget that moment. So that's the second story of a Palestinian who showed me love. The third story, I'll give a little bit of context first before I get to the final story. Like I said, I was supposed to be there for a month, but I left after 8 days. Like I also said, this was a point in my life where I was definitely starting to get deeper into conservative thinking and conservative belief. And, you know, to be quite honest, it wasn't a comfortable place for me as a kind of Western Jew to be, right? To be in Ramallah. You know, obviously I had ideas in my head about the danger of, you know, if people like knew that I was a Jew or something, would something happen to me? Like I didn't know. So I had that in my head. You know, and also just like the basic differences between my upbringing, my kind of value structure and the texture of life that I'm used to, juxtaposed to basically the Arab Islamic texture of life that is very heavily present in Palestine. And I'm not saying anything right or wrong about that at this moment. I'm just saying it's different. And for a young, naive Western Jewish kid, it's pretty uncomfortable. And, you know, combine that with like my conservative kind of ideation at the time, which was like certainly like, you know, kind of in a kind of West is the best attitude and, you know, not very, you know, charitable to Islam and all that stuff. And so I was not in a very comfortable state of mood while I was there. State of mind while I was there. But, you know, obviously trying to do my best to learn about the people as much as I can and do my job, which I didn't really do much of. I only published like 3 articles and not like I even did any interviews for them. They were all like based on information that were already available. And so I was in that kind of state of mood. Like I didn't really leave my apartment very much, you know, unless I was going to work or on an assignment for work. And something had happened where I was trying to go, and I forget what the assignment was, but I was looking for someone for something. I was trying to get somewhere, and my boss, my editor, gave me some Arabic words to say to people to ask for directions. And so I was walking around downtown Ramallah, and I was using these words that I was told and trying to find where I was going. So I was walking around lost, asking people for directions in a language which was not even remotely my own. And I remember when I was doing that, at one point somebody hailed me down. Somebody was sitting on some steps, and he hailed me down, and he started to ask, you know, what I was doing there. And I don't know the intentions of this man. I don't know who he was, what he was thinking. But it was a little bit of like a mini, I don't want to say interrogation, but it was like he was asking me questions like, what are you doing here? Like, what's going on? You know, who knows? Maybe he recognized that I might be Jewish or something, and he was like, you're way out of place, buddy. Maybe that's what he was getting at, but I don't know his intentions. I don't know anything about this person. But after that, I was a little bit spooked, to be fair, and I kind of started to feel like I wanted to get out of Palestine. And, because I was worried that, maybe this guy is like, would be interested in letting some people know about me, and maybe they would like kidnap me or something. You know, I don't know. And I'm not saying at all that that's what he was thinking. I literally have no clue. He might have been completely well-intentioned. I'm just, these were the thoughts that were going through my mind at the time. Like, am I in danger right now, type thing. And on top of that, I also was getting sick with strep throat, and I just like kind of needed to get some antibiotics from Israel. So after 8 days, you know, I spoke with my parents on the phone, and they were like, you know, just get the hell out of there, man, and come home. You know, because they were obviously worried for me too. And I also had this this assignment that I was given by my internship. They wanted me to like go out into the countryside to, you know, interview some honey harvesters, I think, some beekeepers. And I kind of like didn't want to do that. I kind of just wanted to, cause again, like I was some kid from Montreal, and I didn't even speak Arabic. Like it was starting to dawn on me, like, what am I doing here? I'm so out of place, right? This is not my war even. This is not my conflict. This is not my land. This is not my language. Like, I'm a naive fool out of place here. And so I ended up leaving. So I packed my bags, and went back to the bus stop to leave the West Bank and get back to Jerusalem. And now we're getting to the third little story. And so I think I'd heard that a way to kind of like avoid, you know, the big lines or the checkpoints to get out of the West Bank was to take like a small bus. Instead of like, you know, kind of walking through or whatever, you take this bus, the soldiers come on, and then they, you know, do or do not let you through type thing. It's just a faster way to leave. And like I had mentioned at the beginning of the video, like, getting into the West Bank is easy. Getting out is where you might have trouble, right? Because there is a heavy boot of Israeli presence on these people's necks, and that's a fact. And so I was on the bus. I looked like a Western traveler. I had my guitar, I had my bags, I was just some kid. And I was sitting in the back of the bus next to an old man. And the old man had a nice white mustache, and he was very quiet, just sitting by himself. And didn't say a word to each other. Actually, we did. Excuse me, we did say a word to each other. I think he just asked me, you know, where I was from. And I let him know I'm from Canada. And he was very nice. He was just curious. And that was that. And he continued on. And I remember once we got to the crossing point, a couple of soldiers came onto the bus with their guns and everything. And they were basically checking everybody's identification and visas and stuff like that. So they checked everybody's stuff, and then eventually they got to me. And I gave them my ID and my visa. And for whatever reason, they were just taking longer with it. They were just, you know, analyzing it in a longer way than they had to the other people. So there was a little bit kind of sketch. It was kind of like, okay, maybe am I going to get out? Like, you know, are they going to let me through? Like, they're taking their sweet time with my papers here. And the man next to me, the older Palestinian man, he saw that they were doing that. He saw that they were taking their sweet time with my papers. And this man began to defend me. He began to speak up. He began to basically say to let me through. I'm from Canada. I'm Canadian. Let me through. Let me through. Again, my heart's like stirring as I remember these things. And, you know, the soldiers like kind of looked at each other, and they were like, okay, whatever. They gave me back my papers. And then they looked at the old man, and they made him get out and walk because he had spoken up for me. Some Jewish Canadian kid trying to just get back to Jerusalem, right? Think of like just the cruelty, right? Like, first of all, Actually, let's get to the cruelty in a moment. First, let's think about the love and the care and the bravery of the Palestinian man who was speaking up for me in the face of a couple of young IDF soldiers holding machine guns, right? He spoke up for me forcefully, not in a way that was like aggressive or dangerous, of course not, but in a way that was like, he's Canadian, let him through, in a way that wasn't about force, it was about justice. He was speaking from a place of needing and wanting justice for me, a foreigner. He knew I was a foreigner. He was looking out for my best interest, for justice for me, in the face of dangerous people, okay? Bravery, love, care, protection, justice. The virtues that this man displayed in defense of a stranger. And for that, the soldiers made this old man with a white mustache get out of the bus and go to the back of the queue and walk through the checkpoint to get to Jerusalem. Like, that's cruel. That's just gratuitous force being exerted upon somebody. I don't know what IDF rules they were abiding to do that. I don't know if there were any rules or not. I don't care. The act was an act of cruelty. And this is what people live with out there, you know? And obviously it's a long, complicated war and situation, but in a way it's not complicated at all, because, you know, we need to get past whatever ideas we have in our head that allow us to justify these acts of cruelty. Whatever reason, whatever thought that they had about why they make this old man get out and walk, it doesn't matter what their reasons are. It's wrong. Why? Because it doesn't live by the law of love, which is God's law. Simple. So I just wanted to give that third story, these three stories in general, about three Palestinians who loved and cared for me. Because we're seeing so many horrible things happen out there, and we just need to affirm and talk about the people who are suffering, the people who are being brutalized, who are losing their children, who are losing their loved ones, who are losing their limbs, who are losing their homes, who are losing all their hope of a decent life. I know that there's a war on, and there's two sides in a war. But ultimately, like I say, it doesn't matter. Okay, this world is full of reasons to be fearful, to be, self-protective, to look out for our own interests and to harm those that we think are going to hurt us and stuff like that, But we need to conquer the world. We need to get beyond the passions and the instincts and the drives that lead us to act in a way that is hateful and cruel. I don't care what the reasons are. I don't care if you have the best logical syllogism that tells me why the Israelis have to keep bombing the Palestinians. Ugh, I don't care. The devil is laughing at all of this right now in glee whenever anybody justifies this. I'm sorry to say. And we need to just get past. Anybody who has these beliefs that are justifying any of this needs to just rebuke those thoughts as though they were the literal devil, because that is exactly what they are. And because they're allowing people to justify good people that are not bad, good people that just don't understand what's going on and what they're justifying in their hearts. We need to rebuke these things. We need to remember God. We need to remember Christ. We need to remember the law of love. That's the only way to conquer this world. Again, there are many tendencies that pull us in the wrong directions. It's up to us to wage spiritual warfare against said things, and it's a tough battle. It's a tough battle I face. I struggle with it. It's hard. Sometimes we follow the demons, but we need to make the sign of the cross and call upon Christ Jesus to help us to get beyond ourselves, to look beyond whatever foolishness is allowing us to justify horrors. Okay? Love your enemies and bless those who curse you. That's the law of love. And that's the only way that we'll ever have peace in the Middle East, that we'll ever have peace in the world. And it's a long road, and the devil has much dominion in this world now. But everyone needs to just take a breath and open their eyes. Open their eyes to the reality of what they're justifying. I believe all the good-hearted people, and there are many, very many, who are pro-Israel, just need to open their eyes and look at the devastation, at the suffering, and say no, that there's no reason for it, no reason. I love all my Jewish brothers and sisters back home, here where I live now. This is not meant to be any kind of rebuke of people who I love who are pro-Israel, but I think we absolutely need to just get past ourselves and look to God and open your eyes to the terrible things that are happening right now. So I just wanted to say all that. I mean, this was like almost 10 years ago in my life that all this happened. So, I was like 21 or something at this time, and I'm now like 30, about to turn 31 in a month. And I just felt the need to just say this story because, we have to give honor, respect, and love to every human on this earth. And the Palestinians need it now more than ever. Okay? They need it now more than ever. And the Israelis and the people who support what's going on, you also need love. And through love, that's how you will see what's going on is terrible. And nobody is beyond redemption. Nobody. Everybody can open their eyes and see. Now, obviously, some people that are directly involved, like some of the politicians, will, I believe, have to face justice. But regular people who are just looking at this and, justifying it, open your eyes and see, my friend, my brother, my sister. And do your best to live by love and to get beyond the thoughts that are allowing you to justify things that are truly terrible. I could say this to people on both sides, but right now it's the Palestinians who are suffering. Right now it's them who are being brutalized. Right now they need our love more than anything. God, watch over us all. Watch over the Palestinians. Watch over the Israelis. Help all of us, every one of us, to come to your love and to see what's right, and to do our best to combat the evil tendencies that arise in every human heart, every human heart. Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on us, sinners. Amen. God bless you all. I love you.